The sea keeps secrets better than any empire. In the year 1900, a storm, a detour, an accident, a group of sponge divers seeking shelter found themselves above an ancient graveyard. When they slipped beneath the waves the next morning, they expected sponges. They found ghosts. At 150 feet below, the ocean floor opened into a nightmare of beauty. Statues, shattered faces, limbs of gods and heroes scattered across the seabed like discarded toys. A bronze arm reached upward as if begging for a salvation that was 2,000 years too late. This was a Roman shipwreck, a floating museum of plundered Greek treasure, destined for some wealthy Roman's villa. It was a spectacular find, but it was a lie. Because hidden among the masterpieces was something that didn't belong, something impossible. A lump, brown, corroded, fused like melted stone. It was the kind of thing you'd kick aside. When the divers brought it to the surface, scholars cataloged it, but no one understood what they had. In 1902, Valerio Stais spotted the gears. He published his discovery. The world laughed. Then, someone saw the teeth. Bronze teeth, gears. The idea was laughable. An insult to history. Ancient Greece was philosophy. It was sculpture. It was theater. It was not precision machinery. Gears like this shouldn't exist for another 1,000 years. But here they were. And when the first X-rays were taken, the disbelief turned to something else. Something like fear. Inside the corroded mass were layers, plates, axles, intricate gear trains, tiny inscriptions. This wasn't an ornament. It was a machine. A device of such complexity, it didn't just rewrite history. It exposed the fact that our history was a pale, fragmented ghost of what once was. How did a computer end up at the bottom of the Aegean Sea? And why, in all our digging, in all our libraries, was it the only one we ever found? The sea had kept its secret. Now it was our turn to fail at keeping ours. When modern engineers finally peered inside using CT scanners and 3D modeling, they weren't just looking at an artifact, they were opening a door. Inside were at least 37 interlocking bronze gears, each hand-cut with a precision that defied belief. But one feature stole the breath from every mechanical historian who saw it. A pin and slot mechanism that allowed for variable motion. Moon gear, 254 teeth, driver 19, ratio 13.36842, the exact metonic cycle. Another 223 to 27, the Saros eclipse repeats. This wasn't a theory, it was math forged in bronze. This wasn't just clockwork, it was a system that could mimic the irregularities of the heavens. A level of sophistication that wouldn't be seen again until the great astronomical clocks of the Renaissance, 1,400 years later. This mechanism wasn't just measuring time. It was modeling the cosmos. You turned a hand crank, and the universe moved with you. It predicted when eclipses would occur, and what type they would be, information ancient rulers treated as omens. It tracked the wandering paths of the 5 planets known to the ancients. It calculated the metonic cycle, a 19-year pattern aligning the sun and moon. It encoded the Saros cycle, the precise 18-year rhythm of eclipses. This was a celestial calendar, a planetarium, and a prophecy machine, all in one. And here, the craftsman left his voice. Inscriptions, thousands of characters, our user's manual, etched in bronze. Calibration notes, astronomical data. This was built by someone who didn't just understand the stars, but could translate their grand, silent music into a language of wheels and teeth. And at its heart, they found the ghost of a genius, the gearing ratio that accounted for the moon's slightly irregular orbit. In the history books, this discovery is attributed to the great astronomer Hipparchus. But here it was, not as a theory on a scroll, but as a physical machine. The math made metal. This was an analog computer, a device that took the vast, spiritual, unreachable sky and made it something you could hold in your hands, something you could understand. No device of comparable complexity appears in the historical record for over a millennium, which leaves us with only one chilling conclusion. This wasn't the first of its kind. It was the last one standing. What kind of civilization builds a computer and then forgets how? To understand who built this, we must look not at the wreck, but at the world it came from. A world buzzing with mechanical genius that survives only in whispers. The clues point to Rhodes, a powerhouse of astronomy and engineering, home to Hipparchus himself. They point to scholars like Posidonius, who was said to have built a globe that mapped the heavens. But the most compelling clue points to a single legendary name, Archimedes. The Roman orator Cicero wrote of seeing a device that represented the motions of the sun, moon, and planets, a sphere built by Archimedes, looted from the sacked city of Syracuse and displayed in a Roman general's home. This is the part that historians whisper, but rarely say aloud. The ship carrying the Antikythera Mechanism sank on a well-known route for transporting looted Greek treasures to Rome. A machine of impossible sophistication, found on a ship carrying stolen Greek engineering, matching the description of an Archimedean mechanism. It's not proof, but it is a shadow with a shape, and the truth is darker than we admit. Greek engineers were not primitive. They built automata, self-moving statues powered by steam and water. They built mechanical theaters with timed sequences of acting dolls. They engineered complex water pumps, the first odometers, and even primitive differential gears. They were standing on the precipice of an industrial revolution. And then, Rome came for Syracuse. Archimedes, the greatest engineer of the ancient world, was drawing a diagram in the sand when a Roman soldier killed him. His last words were said to be, "Do not disturb my circles." The command was ignored, his workshop was burned, his instruments were smashed, his apprentices were slaughtered or sold into slavery. Entire libraries of engineering manuscripts, designs for machines we cannot even imagine, turned to ash. The Antikythera Mechanism should not be the only one of its kind, but history is written by the survivors. And inventors rarely survive conquest. If one machine made it onto a looter's ship, how many thousands more were burned to cinders on the shore? The tragedy of the Antikythera Mechanism is not that it survived, it's that nothing else did. The fall of Greek scientific culture wasn't a single, dramatic explosion. It was a slow, grinding suffocation. Rome admired Greek art, Greek philosophy, Greek literature, but they had little use for abstract Greek engineering genius. Roman innovation was practical, monumental, brutal. Roads, aqueducts, military logistics. The workshops that once produced precision cosmic computers were retooled to produce armor and siege engines. After Archimedes was murdered, no new generation of theoretical engineers rose to replace him. The political will evaporated. The patronage networks fractured. The great libraries of Alexandria and Pergamum decayed, their scrolls crumbling to dust. The mathematical schools faded into obscurity. The knowledge didn't just become rare, it became meaningless. Centuries later, when medieval scribes painstakingly copied the few surviving Greek technical diagrams, they had no frame of reference. They saw the intricate gear drawings and assumed they were symbolic decorations, illustrations of celestial harmony. They copied the shapes, but had lost the context. They no longer understood that these were blueprints. Humanity didn't just lose knowledge. It lost the very concept of knowledge. By the time advanced gearing miraculously reappeared in the Islamic world centuries later, and later still in Europe, the lineage was utterly broken. The tradition was gone. The chain of transmission severed. It was a rediscovery, not a continuation. Civilizations don't always collapse in fire and rubble. Sometimes they simply forget what they once knew, and nothing demonstrates this more brutally than a 2,000-year-old computer sitting in a glass case, a solitary, silent monument to an entire age of missing machines. How does an entire world forget its own genius? And more importantly, what else have we forgotten? Modern technology didn't just reconstruct the Antikythera mechanism, it resurrected its soul. High-resolution CT scans revealed the final devastating truth hidden in the inscriptions. This wasn't a prototype, it was a finished product. A device meant to be used, sold, and understood, which means the builder had made others before it, which means there were students trained to use it, which means there were workshops, a clientele, a supply of bronze and craftsmen, which means an entire industry, a thriving ecosystem of high technology, once pulsed with life, and it was all lost. If the Antikythera mechanism survived purely by a fluke of geology and sea current, then the machines that didn't survive must have been extraordinary. This should terrify us, because we are now the ancients. We are the civilization storing its collective genius inside fragile, ephemeral machines. Hard drives decay and become unreadable. Servers fail in an instant. Data centers can burn to the ground. File formats become obsolete, locking away our history in digital tombs. Corporations that hold our data collapse. Governments censor and rewrite. Empires, as they always do, fall. In 2009, NASA admitted it had overwritten the original Apollo 11 moon landing tapes. The pristine, highest quality record of humanity's first steps on another world was erased by mistake. In 2018, Brazil's National Museum burned 200 years of artifacts, recordings, and documents from countless indigenous cultures, gone forever. In 2020, a fire in a South African archive incinerated 85,000 historical maps and documents. We are not safer than the Greeks. We are more vulnerable. Our knowledge no longer lives on durable parchment or stone. It lives in electricity, a fleeting spark in the dark. Ask yourself, if our global civilization vanished tonight, what would remain in 2,000 years? What single object would future divers hold in their hands, crusted with the corrosion of ages, and wonder how we ever built it? A smartphone? A silicon chip? It would be a black, inert slab, a lump. They would have no way to access the universe of knowledge trapped inside. They would shrug, catalog it, and move on. The Antikythera Mechanism is many things: a computer, a relic, a masterpiece, a mystery. But above all, it is a warning. They mass-produce the future in bronze. We store it in silicon. We are not the upgrade. We are the echo.